Hey guys, what's going on? This is Don, and this is just a bonus extra lesson for my sci-fi space loop series. This is a slightly different scene to the one I created in the tutorial. You can see I've used a different image in place of the original galaxy. That's now a nebula instead. So if I just quickly show you what that looks like. The fog is not rendering correctly because of that weird glitch in Cinema 4D. So if we go back to the beginning, okay, now it's working. So something which may happen is if you want to use a different image, all of these images here I have, these extra ones, they are all rectangles, right? And obviously we used a square image in the original class, and that fit fine on a disk shape. But let's say you have one of these rectangular frames. So let's get this one and drop it in here. I'm gonna go to the color channel, take this out of here and place it inside the luminance. Okay, I don't know what happened there, but here we go. And instead of having a disk shape, we're going to use a plane instead. It's going to be similarly sized. So if I first of all make it Z plus, if I click on the disk, I can see that it has a width of 65,000 and the same for the height. So I'll go to the height of my plane. And let's just, in fact, no, before we do that, let's look at the resolution of the image. It's 1920 by 1200. Okay, so if I go to the width and height in the object tab, let's do the same so we get the proportion of the frame correct, and then I'll drop the image onto this now. And now what I can do is just go to the height over here, and let's set the height to 65,000, and when I change the scale here, it automatically scales up the other side proportionally too. Now this was 30,000 in Z space, and about, let's see, if we look through the camera, it was about 22,500 up in Y space, and I can see here I just have to nudge it so that is in the middle. And if we go back down to where the disk is, let's put the plane in the same area. Okay, so this is now a child of the moving camera null, so that it has no perspective shift when we are playing through the animation here. Okay, so now if I do a quick preview, you can see we have a completely different look just by changing the image. Sometimes you would have to also go and change the color of the fog, but in this case actually it's not too bad. That was a similar blue color, but we can make some adjustments in here. If I get my interactive render region, Alt and R, that will make changes as I update. And I'm also going to go to my render settings, and let's just drop this to geometry for now in the anti-aliasing, so it's a bit faster for the feedback. Anyway, now I can take this luminance layer and place it inside of a filter. We just want to tidy this up a bit, and let's jump in here. We can bump up the saturation just like we did in the original, maybe to about 20. You know, if the image is already quite saturated, you don't need to do this, but I like to use some really vivid colors, and I would say that looks okay there. I think this might be backwards though, so if I go to the plane, let's set this to Z minus for the orientation, and now that's the same as we see in the preview. Okay, so if you recall, in one of the lessons we had to adjust the edges of our image in the alpha channel, but this image is so if I open it here, let's see, open window, this image is already quite dark around the edges, but we still do need to make some adjustments just to make sure there's no hard edges in the render. So once again here, I'm gonna turn on colorize, put saturation to 0, and if we adjust the clipping, we want to make sure that the edges totally go and fade out to black, and then brighten everything else up. We can pull this middle back as far as we want. And I'll say that looks okay there. In the physical sky, let's change the color of the fog. I will make it more blue. So if I go for 200 for the hue, I think that would just be a bit better in this case. And I can also maybe lower the density to about 60 or so. Just trying to dial in something that looks a bit different. Okay, and this is something that I would say looks good enough. You know, if we do a render just to the picture viewer without saving the image, we can see what that looks like. And again, it's attempting to render the whole animation, so I'll stop it after the frame. Now, that was a relatively easy image to work with in terms of putting something else there. If you saw the other images could actually be a bit more challenging. So let's say, you know, this one where the edges actually won't be that easy to just fade off, although it's probably possible still using the alpha channel. But anyway, let's try it in a second. Let me press escape to stop this render, and now you can see this is our new look. Alright, I actually like that a lot, so I will save as incremental to save that version in case I want to go back to it later. And let's get what could be potentially a more challenging image to work with. So once again, if we look at the image proportions, 2560 by 1440, we go to our plane and say 2560 by 1440. So now it's just way out over there, and let's apply this quickly to that and readjust the scale over here. So once again, 65,000 seems to be the magic number. This also needs to be in the Luminance channel, so let's do that. And zero out the exposition. This time it's already quite centered. Okay, so a quick render of that. You can see a completely different look. And we have that nice, well, it's not nice, this hard edge up here. Now you can go quite far with the alpha channel, I think, to a certain extent, using this image also. But I'm not sure those edges will fade off quickly enough without crunching the image too much. But let's take a look. This is crunched down quite a bit, and I can actually still see the other image. Okay, we applied both images there, so let's make sure we just have the one. It's taking a while to render, actually. I don't know why that is. And you can see the edge is still quite difficult to get rid of. So this is where you can do some tricks, like if I take this whole filter and place it inside of a layer, we can apply a gradient shader. And by the way, if I did that too fast, that is found under shader and gradient. Let's go into the gradient and change it to 2D circular, and I'm going to right click and invert gradient, so we have white in the middle and black around the outside. So as you can imagine, this is just trying to put a black edge on top of our image to make sure that the edge fades off. So about here, basically use this as your preview for this, because you know, when we started the white was still touching the edges, but if I bring this down, now you see this sort of thing. You don't want to do it too far because you will lose your entire image, so there's a nice balance in between. And if you want to make the fade less gradual, you can hold control and copy this white handle that will sharpen the edge, and I kind of whistled there when I said that. But anyway, let's continue. Because this is a just an extra lesson, I'm not gonna edit it down to anything. I'll just post the original recording. Anyway, I actually don't want to do this. Let's just or maybe a bit. Okay, about there. I'm spending too much time on this, but anyway, let's go back. And now we can set this layer's blending mode from normal to multiply. So whatever this image could not handle on its own in terms of fading the edges, this gradient multiply is going to cover that up. And now we know for sure that our edges are going to fade. Now this is no longer an image alpha because we've built it inside of a custom layer. So let's untick that just to make sure that everything is going to render correctly. And in the Luminance channel, I will apply another filter, and let's go to saturation, and once again just make these colors even stronger. You could even play with the hues here, but that might give you some pretty weird results. So I would stick to the original images, but maybe just a bit of play can be interesting. Anyway, for this particular scene, okay, it was taking so long to render because I did bump up my settings to 4x4. So let's go back down to 2x2. That should still look good enough, and let's run another render of this frame. This time though, I'll just do current frame. I think though I should change the color of the fog, and I can pick from over there somewhere. So this kind of hue, okay, that's basically the same. I'm gonna drop it to about 195, which again, not much of a difference, but let's try it. The density of my fog I'll maybe put back up to 75. And let's do our new render. So, you know, once again, just changing that image back there, because of the way we set up, you know, the reflections and everything, it changes the tone of the entire scene. Now, this is quite cold looking, and I'm not a big fan of this particular image, but, you know, that's really just a creative choice you can make for your own scene. I'll try it one more time with this image, which I think is going to be very simple. We can drop into Luminance. And as I'm going here, I'm just going to work a bit faster. This is how I normally would be doing projects. This will be in a filter. I think it's dark enough around the edge to where filtering in the alpha is going to be enough on its own. About here. 1920 by 1080 is the ratio there. So let's start by setting that, and then adjusting. I'm going to remove it from the texture there. Now this is a case where I might actually enlarge this because I think that's a bit small, but let's see how it's going to be. Another quick render, and once again we have a different look, more purples and blues this time. Yeah, that's too small, that galaxy part, and also a bit too horizontal. So I would go to the plane and let's go to the coordinates. It's the banking we want. set this to about -20 or so, 22. And let's make the whole thing about 75,000, maybe even more. Let's say 80,000. Maybe push it higher to about 24,000. Not a huge difference, but certainly different. Okay, I'll go for 85,000 for their height, and I'm also going to change my fog to match these tones a bit more. It's a deeper kind of blue color. And we can preview. This can be brighter actually. Once again, quite quickly we can get something that looks very different. So I just wanted to go over those extras just to give you guys some more options and you know, clear up anything that I may have missed. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you have any other questions, let me know, and I might do another recording like this.